What's up, guys? It is I, Zara Khan, aka 5th Rate Duelist, here with you for another episode of the Becoming a First Rate Duelist podcast, now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, freaking every single podcast service. I sat there for like 30 minutes just signing up for all these podcast services, so don't ask me any more details, but it should be available, so just check it out if you haven't already. And yes, episodes will be resuming weekly. I kind of had a hiatus where I didn't want to do anything related to Yu-Gi-Oh! And now I'm paying for it. But we are back, and we are also having duels, which are posted on YouTube. Just did a duel with DB Grinder. Spoiler alert, it was a Flunder mirror match. I probably should have told him that I was playing Flunder, and he probably should have told me he was playing Flunder, and then once we started, it was like, okay, well, it's too late. We're just gonna have to do this. And the video is an hour long, but it's very funny, and Austin's a great person. Anyway, so today we have here Noah Beygelman, who you may not know, you may know him. But one thing that I've been told about him by many people is that he is an expert deck builder, and he is very good at coming up with innovative ideas. So for example, if you're wondering who the asshole is who came up with Scythe in Virtual World, that's Noah Beygelman, which I mean in the nicest way. And so, that's just one, and I'll have him explain other decks that he's come up with. But before I move on to the questions, Noah, is there anything you want to add about yourself? Like, kind of notable tops, history, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's cool you mentioned that you talked to DB Grinder last week, because I actually met him for the first time, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, at a tournament, the Goofy Gauntlet in Connecticut. He was doing commentary there, so that was pretty cool to get to see him in person. But yeah, so I've been playing since around the end of 2017, basically right when Link Monsters got introduced. I used to watch the show as a kid, as probably most people in my generation did. But I never really played the game seriously until my cousin actually was he wanted to play Magic. And so we tried that out. We went to Target, saw the where they sold the Magic cards, and they were selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards too. I was like, yo, no way, this is still a game 15 years later or whatever. And so we played Magic, and I was like, all right, this game sucks. It's way too slow. But I remember Yu-Gi-Oh being hype with the anime and stuff. So I went back, I think the next day, and bought the Dino Smasher structure deck. And I remember reading Miscellaneous for the first time, and I was like, they're really writing essays on cards these days. So I picked that up. And from then on, I tried to see if I could find some places in the area to play. And I remember is it all right if I ramble on like this, by the way?
Yeah, I'll interrupt you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, feel free to interrupt, because I could talk for a while. But anyways, so I went to my first local. I went to school at college at Arizona State University. So if anybody's from around there, maybe you'll see me come out there for some regionals and stuff. I still know people out there. But I went to the locals, and this is when Maximum Crisis, I think, was the last core set before Links could come out, before Code of the Duelist.
Okay.
And I played against someone round one who had a play set of Secret Rare Ash Blossom, Secret Rare Barrage, Diagram. And I remember looking up the prices of the cards after, because I got stomped 2-0'd in 10 minutes, right? I was like, wow, so people really spend this much money on the game? That's crazy. I just basically bought one structure deck, and then just had a bunch of bulk commons that I threw together and tried to call it a deck.
So what was that,
so that was
you started off with basically a budget build, right? So when it came to investing money in the game, how did you go about that? Where'd you get the money from? Did you make it self-sustaining? What happened?
Yeah. So I had very minimal money, because I said, I was a college student. I was lucky enough to go to ASU on a full ride, so I didn't have to worry about the whole student loan debt kind of thing, which was super fortunate.
Oh, nice.
So I had a little bit of spare money, but I wasn't that confident in my ability to play the game that I would want to be dropping hundreds of dollars right from the start.
Yeah.
So I gave myself a budget of $80, and with that, I bought a Trickstar core from Yugioh Singles. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're like an old website. I don't think they're around anymore. I think they stopped at like the end of 2018, maybe 2019.
Uh-huh.
But it was like a website in New Zealand where you could buy like deck cores, and they were like relatively cheap compared to like the American prices. You had to wait a while for them to ship, but yeah. So I remember I spent money on a Trickstar deck core, and I was like, okay, there's this regional that a couple people at the locals were telling me about in Mesa, Arizona. I was like, all right, I'm gonna take my Trickstar deck there, and if I do well, then maybe, I can expand the budget, spend more money, and get like more invested in the game.
Okay, and how'd you do?
Yeah, so my journey started off with being absolutely the luckiest player ever. I actually started the event. I think it was 8 rounds. I started the event with a win, or I started with 2 losses, then a draw, and then I played against Flower Guardians. I remember this. Um, and apparently that's just like the best matchup ever for Trickstar because all they do is draw cards and add cards from the deck to the hand.
Uh-huh.
So I was just like burning them out with Licorice. Like my win condition was basically just burn damage, and so I won that match. And I was like, all right, like I can win, I can do this. And then somehow I managed to go 5-2-1 and got my invite. I came in like 29th or something like that, just cheesing people. I played like really bad cards like Dark Room of Nightmare and like Blazing Mirror Force, just like cheap ways of like doing burn damage basically. But yeah, so I was able to get go 5-2-1 and get my invite, and I was like, all right, well I guess I got to start taking this game seriously now. I'm like, maybe I'm good, but spoiler alert, I was really bad. So like I was still I basically all the events I went to after that I did like really bad, but I was still hype off of my first success. That's kind of what inspired me to invest more and like keep playing the game.
Okay. And for anyone that doesn't know, I believe your dad also plays the game. So
Yeah.
did he get into it because of you? And like, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So he when I first started playing the game, I was mentioning it was like right around when Lynx came out, and he had got this Cyber Dragon deck. And he was like super salty because we started playing. I was like, "Yo, Dad, you got to try this game." Since he, I don't know, he usually likes playing these kind of things. He's never been like a video game person, and I was like, "All right, you got no good hobbies, like try playing this game. It's a lot of fun. You'll like it. It's intellectual." So he picked up some of the Cyber Dragon cards, and like right as he got done making his deck, they announced Lynx, and he's like, "Oh, I can't play my deck anymore. Like, how am I supposed to summon like Infinity and Pleiades if I only get to like I have to make these stupid blue cards,
Yeah.
So so then he just like didn't really play for a while, and this is in the summer before I went to freshman year of college. So so he didn't really play much, and then I went to school and I started playing there. And then that next summer that I came back, I was like, all right, you got to give this game like another shot. I promise you'll like it. You'll have to get used to these like nonsense link cards, but like it's worth it. And then he started playing, and he was always playing like, random stuff. He would come with me to locals, which is like super cool, nice like bonding experience.
That's good.
And he's like very competitive. I don't know if anybody in chat has like ever played against him before, but he's like he doesn't play like most of the other like Yugi dads where they just play like Mystic Mine, like Floodgate style decks. He's always trying to like
Jeff
pull off combos and stuff. Yeah. No, this is no trash talk. It's just a style, But yeah, so he's always been one to play like more combo centric stuff. Like he played Pendulum for like a really long time.
Yeah, I think when I saw him in New York, I went up to him and asked him if he was Jeff Leonard. And he laughed, and he's like, no. And I was like, in a world that's kind of racist, like, I think it's like,
it's ageist,
maybe that's not something I should have said as my first impression to an older man, but that's kind of what I do. I just say the first thing that comes to mind, which obviously never has consequences, and not it's not a bad thing that I have a very popular Twitter. But anyway, yeah, like I don't know, I think it's cute. Like, was Gamer's Choice like the first time your dad topped, or like has he topped before?
No, so he used to like. It was kind of funny. While I was at school, I live in New Hampshire right now, so we actually didn't get to go to a lot of events at the same time. He would kind of be going to like the regionals and stuff. This is throughout like 2018, 2019.
Oh,
He would try
wow.
to go to like regionals and YFCSs in this area while I was more like, West Coast. But yeah, no, he plays for sure. It's not like just something that he and I go to. He would go to events like travel by himself or travel with some of like our local players.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's
but he
impressive.
was yeah, for sure. He wasn't as lucky as me in terms of like the first regional I ever went to. He was like super determined to get his invite. I think he went to like 7 or 8 regionals before he finally got his invite playing Pendulum. Actually, this is
Okay.
back when Electrum is legal and Servant of Endymion was at 3, so he was playing like the like Endymion Pendulum deck, make a billion negates kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
But
That's
yeah,
cool. Are you better than your dad, or is he better than you?
most people say it's Noah's dad. So judging by the way that phrases, instead of me being his son, me being Mike's son, uh, I would say like credential wise, I am.
Okay.
But ironically, we every time we play in like a real tournament, like a at Gamers Choice or at like regionals, or just other like events with hundreds of people, he always beats me. I don't understand it. Like I think I'm 0-3 against him in like premier events. When we play at locals or like we test at home, it's just like I have like 90% win rate, but then somehow he always has my number whenever we play at a real event.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but in terms of like actual credentials, I have more for now. But who knows? He's going to be going to YCS Charlotte with me, so
Oh, I'll
he
see you
can
guys
build up
there.
some stuff. Yeah,
I
yeah,
wonder
for
if he
sure.
remembers me after I just told
Oh, I'm
you.
sure.
I said, oh god, my mom's calling me. Okay, I'm not taking a call in stream, but I will pause stream to tell everyone that my mom is calling me. Okay, anyway, okay, cool. That's cute. That's cute that you guys do that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I have heard from other people that you're excellent deck builder. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you can kind of talk about deck building a bit more. A
Yeah.
lot of my viewers are newer or like, casual. So
Hmm.
please don't use like technical terms that we won't
Sure,
understand.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that I would recommend right from the start that helped me a lot was reading Patrick Hoban's book, Road to the King.
I'm 5 pages
Um,
in. I got really bored,
yeah,
but I will eventually
yeah.
go
And
through it.
it's literally a college textbook. Like he goes very in depth. It's not very entertaining, but I think it's like super helpful to understand ideas and like you said, understand like terminology. So this was something that at an early locals, one of the guys there that I became friends with, Colby, he gave me his copy of the book to read. Um, so reading that early on kind of helped me move past a lot of the problems that I think people have when they first start playing the game, and maybe they think, "Ooh, I could like try becoming competitive," um, but they don't have like a good resource to reflect on when trying to like make their own deck, determine what types of archetypes are viable for an event, right? That kind of an idea. Um, since it's not always about like the um, the cards you put in your deck to like help yourself, do well at the game, but it's also about the cards you put in the deck to counter like the archetypes you think other people are going to be playing at a very specific event. So the book kind of goes in depth talking about like how to plan for an event as well as how to make a deck that you think you can win with.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but so I can kind of talk a little bit more about my actual like deck building approach from when I started.
Sure.
So like I really don't like to lose at things. So I was like, all right, I don't want to lose, but I know that if I try to like play a standard deck that a lot of other people are playing, then I'm going to be worse at actually playing my cards than them. So like I'll probably lose. So I think if I just find an advantage by making a better deck than them, then I'll be able to like cheese some games because I'll play like random cards they haven't heard of, or I'll have like some different line of play that like they're not expecting, that kind of a thing. So I really wanted to like lean on my deck building as a way to help me still win games while I was figuring out like how to actually play the cards. So at the very start, the first deck that I think people would know me for, if you do know me, is the Pendulum Ftk Deck.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, so this is from early 2018. This is at YCS Atlanta. I think it was in like February of 2018. It was the first YCS that Electromite was legal. So we had just gone through a format of Spiral, like the original Spiral. And that deck was just like crazy, super powerful. And then they released Electromite, and everyone was hyping up Electromite as like the new Spiral, right? You would make like 1 billion negates on the board. But one of the problems we found with the deck is that going second in the mirror match, cards like Purple Poison Magician and Astrograph Sorcerer allowed you to beat, if you were playing Pendulum, right? They allowed you to beat the other Pendulum opponents by just using like just really powerful cards, basically. The same powerful cards you would use to set up the board could also be used to break the board, if you kind of knew what you were doing. So we were like, all right, how do we find a way of going first and winning and basically ignoring the fact that we're playing 95% of the same deck, so they could beat us going second? What if we could just FTK them? So I saw on some YouTube video that had like 50 views that they were using the Predaplant monsters like Orphoscorpio to search out instant fusion.
Okay.
And then using this card called Rescue Ferret to summon out dark pendulum monsters from the deck. It was like a lot of bad cards, super gimmicky, but they would use this card, Rescue Ferret, summon out dark pendulum monsters from the deck, and then tribute them to summon this card that's now banned, Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. It's actually legal in Master Duel, which is funny. Like you can do this Pendulum FTK in Master Duel, but the Starving Venom is banned in the TCG format. But anyway, so you would summon out this Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. You would use Instant Fusion to summon out the Lyrilusc Fusion monster. It's called Independent Nightingale.
Okay.
And you would use Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom to copy the effect of Lyrilusc Independent Nightingale. And the Nightingale's effect is that you burn your opponent for 500 damage multiplied by its level. So Starving Venom is level 8, so you would burn them for 4,000 damage. Essentially, you would just make 2 copies of Starving Venom. Since it wasn't you could use like multiple of them, it wasn't a hard once per turn. If you had multiple Starving Venoms on board. And so you would just copy the Lyrilusc Independent Nightingale and burn them for 8,000 turn 1.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was super crazy. And what made it like ultimately super consistent is, number one, Instant Fusion was at 3 at the time, and you could also play 3 Pot of Desires, right? So you could draw into it, but alternatively, if you didn't draw it, there's these Supreme King Gate Pendulum monsters. They're the ones you search off of Darkworm, Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, and they have like this secret hidden effect. The Gate 0 does, at least. If you control the Gate 0 and the Gate Infinity in both your Pendulum zones, you can destroy them to search any card that lists Fusion in the name. So you could actually search out the Instant Fusion, as well as summoning the Dark Pendulum monsters to make the Starving Venoms.
Oh.
So the FTK was like crazy consistent. You couldn't do it through a lot of the hand traps, but in the Pendulum Mirror, typically you didn't play hand traps. You would play cards like Sphere Mode and Lava Golem to help break the boards going second. So it was like a pretty big punish to like those kind of cards to just, kill them on turn 0.
Oh, I see.
So this is why people, I think, call me like crazy in terms of deck building, is because like this started a whole revolution of just like infinite FTK decks. Basically all of 2018 was just like different iterations of FTK, all starting in February with this Pendulum FTK.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I started the curse of the game in 2018.
Oh man.
But
that guy.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I had to work really hard. See, the problem is I actually didn't top with the event. My friend Colby that I mentioned before, who went to my locals in Arizona, he's the one who topped with the deck because, like I said, I was just like really bad at playing the game. So like I would win every time I went first because I knew how to do the FTK through like hand traps. Like Ash and Ogre were like commonly played ones at the time. So I was like able to, pull off the combo every time I went first. But going second, I like wasn't very good at figuring out how to like break boards and stuff. So
Oh, I
I didn't
see.
actually top, but my friend Colby did.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it got like more widespread.
Okay.
But
Well, that's nuts.
yeah,
That's like very
yeah.
impressive. Like it kind of shows that like you didn't consider yourself like the best player, but you
Mhm.
had an alternate strategy of figuring out a different type of deck that would give you an advantage. And I think that's really out of the box thinking. That's like very impressive.
The problem is it kind of led into what you mentioned about the whole like imposter syndrome thing. Because like I knew that I could make the deck to be good, but like why was I still not getting the actual results myself? Like I would test with this other guy, Mitchell Martin. He's like another like I guess quote unquote pro player. We're both on Team Jobber now.
Okay.
But so I would give my list to him, and he would play, and he would do really well. My friend Colby would do really well, um, and like other people at locals would do really well with these decks that I made, but like I couldn't do well with them. So it was like kind of weird thing for me because I was like, I know this is a good idea, so like why am I not seeing the actual results when I would go to like other regionals past that first one that I mentioned?
Uh huh.
So that was kind of like a hurdle for me to overcome is like just believing in my ideas and just like all right the technical play, right, the ability to actually like do well at a tournament will come.
So how
I just
did
have
you
to
get
stick with
over
it.
that imposter syndrome like thing? Because that's something that a lot of my viewers and myself face. Like my
Hmm.
first big tournament was the Gamer's Choice, where I got second, and afterwards I was like, it was a fluke, it was a fluke, and there was a YCS, which was my first YCS, and I just did terribly because I was constantly freaking out that like it was a fluke, which was very counterproductive and unhealthy, but I didn't really know what to
Hmm.
do about it. So I'd be curious to see kind of what suggestions you have for anyone struggling with this quote unquote imposter syndrome.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest thing for me was sitting down at the table every round and introducing myself and being like, trying to be like, nice, friendly to my opponents. And like, they had no preconceived notions of who I was before I sat down and played. I'm just like another player playing against them. They don't know like, oh, you went 0-4 at your last locals, or oh, you won the last regional you played in, right? Like most of the time, the person you're playing against, they just regard you as another person playing Yu-Gi-Oh. So I think this kind of like helped me like kind of calm nerves and just play without thinking about other games. Just like focus on this game right now. Try to enjoy myself as much as is possible playing this game while I'm playing the match with them, and just like try to make the most out of the opportunity that I get to play in real tournaments.
Yeah, I think that's really important is like being in the moment type of a thing because
Mhm.
like you can really trip yourself out. Not you, I mean like viewers can
Yeah,
really trip
someone.
yourself
Mhm.
out like getting in your head thinking like, "Oh, am I capable of doing this or am I good?" Or especially when you go against people who are known players, there's like that
Mhm.
intimidation. Like there was this one Drytron player, I forgot his name, but I know that he had won a couple of YCSs and I got paired with him and like I was freaking out the whole time. I was like, what am I gonna do? And I lost game one. And then I'd seen his deck profile, and in the deck profile he played Mystic Mine. But as I was trying to like side, I wasn't really thinking clearly, and I didn't think about that. And so the way he beat me was like he set up a board, I broke it, I turned everything around, I had enough negates, I was going to win. And then he crashed his Natasha into my monster and then dropped Mystic Mine and oh, and he had Dark Ruler. And then he
Oh,
just decked
nice.
me out, and I was like, "This is what I was afraid of. Like this strategy is something I was like, oh, a pro player. I don't know Drytron as well as him. I was like, no, that was like, if that was such a lame strategy. It's like I totally didn't need to be freaking out about facing this dude.
Mhm.
And yeah, no shade to him. He's a fine
Yeah, yeah.
individual, I'm sure, but you know, you don't have to freak out about that sort of thing.
I agree. The other thing too is like, it helps to calm me down too. Is like when you present your deck, is like just take that extra like 10, 15 seconds, like shuffle your opponent's deck, cut it, be like, all right, we're both playing with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like he doesn't have some magical, crazy powerful boss monster that I've never heard of. That like he is going to start within his opening hand because he's a better player than me, right? We're both playing like the same game with the same cards. It's not he has no like real advantage outside of the fact that he's maybe played for longer. But in today's game, like you mentioned, Dark Ruler, Mystic Mine, it doesn't really matter like who you are. Anybody can just activate Dark Ruler and then activate Mystic Mine and deck you out if you have no out, right? There's like this is one thing that like is kind of interesting to me to see people who are starting to play the game now because of Master Duel or because of whatever reason that you're like starting it kind of within the past year, I would say, is that the counter cards, the decks are like so crazy powerful now that I think you can kind of ignore whatever you want to call it, skill, experience, doesn't matter that much. A lot of the going second cards you can play like really equalize the playing field. So there's not much like reason to be nervous, I think now, unless you're playing some sort of deck that can't play those going second cards. But if you can play those like super powerful cards, like you mentioned, like Droplets, Dark Ruler, Mystic Mine, Nibiru, like those kind of like crazy cards. If you can like play those cards now, it can really help you out in leveling the playing field and kind of ignoring how much experience they have, I think, at least.
Yeah, and for the record, I do not want to encourage Mystic Mine, but I'm glad that you brought it up.
Yeah.
I have a very strong hate relationship with that card.
This is like, it's kind of like weird. When I started playing, there was like, I'm not like super Yugi boomer where it's like, oh, in my day, all we had was DD Crow and like you had to play real traps, right? It's not like that. Like there was like Ash Blossom Ogre, right? Veiler, and Imperm came out like pretty shortly after. There's always like hand traps, but it was kind of like there was times when you would feel safe. Like in the old like Goki combos where you would do like Firewall Dragon nonsense. Like the second the Firewall hit the board, you're like, all right, I'm safe. Whereas like nowadays, you have to always be afraid of like, what if they have like Imperm plus Nibiru or like Ghost Ogre plus Gamma or something like that, right? Like some combination of cards that can like really turn the tide. So it just kind of like, it must be hard, I think, for people to start playing now when you can never like really chill, because if your opponent has two unknown cards in hand, it could always be Nibiru plus whatever other interruption they have, and then you just kind of not in a good spot.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh is very anxiety-inducing. I'm not gonna lie. But I know there's a lot of complaints about this format. I didn't play it for like a month, and I just started playing it. I was playing Flundery's Nuts, and I felt like I was having really interesting games with back and forth. Like if Flunder could just kill, then I would definitely play that deck because it's very powerful. Or if you can draw a frickin' bird after searching your deck for 12 cards and still not drawing a bird, like that kind of stuff's very frustrating. But, and then I was playing Pranks for a bit, and I just feel like with the inclusion of hand traps, it just makes the games more interesting because no one can frickin' build a board. Like, it's just like this kind of like race to build a board, but you're like hand trapping each other, and it just makes it very interesting in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. Like the more cards that are being activated on both players' turns, like the more interesting it gets.
Yep, definitely. Do you have any advice for newer players or players that are more casual who want to get better at the game?
Yeah. So something that helped me a lot. It's kind of unfortunate with the whole COVID situation still going on, but when I had first started playing, what helped me a lot was talking to the better players at my locals. And a lot of them now I look back on it and it's like, okay, these were like not necessarily like who you would consider a pro, but they were like, to me, someone I looked up to at the time, right? And they were like super helpful, and like as long as you kind of approach people with the mindset of like wanting to learn and get better, then I think like in general the community is pretty healthy, despite what you may see on Zodiac Duelist, right? But
We don't
in
talk
general,
about
just like
Zodiac Duelist on my channel.
yeah, so like I don't know, in general, just like going to a local and trying to, instead of just going to a local, showing up and playing your 3 or 4 rounds or 5, whatever, how big your locals is, and then leaving. Um, I think it's like helpful if you're able to find people there that want to test open-handed. So this is a strategy that I think Hoban talks about in the Road of the King book. But open-handed just basically meaning like you're not testing like, am I a better player than you? It's like, are these 5 cards better than these 5 cards if we play them in the right sequence?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is like a really helpful way of testing is if you're able to find someone who is, you know, again, I don't like saying like better than you, worse than you, because it's all about like experience, right? But someone who's has more experience and they're willing to spend the time to like test in an open-handed way with you to ensure that both of you are making the correct plays, then it becomes like really valuable because if you, you know, in theory, if you know that the strategy you're playing can beat theirs if they're playing their cards, you know, in a theoretically perfect way, because you have like 2 heads working on the problem, then you should be able to do well if your opponent is not playing perfectly, because that's usually what happens in like a real game.
Yeah, and for viewers out there, Noah and I are going to do a proper testing session, and so we will be like showing you how you can do that. So check my YouTube channel for that as well.
Yeah, this was just like super helpful. I mean, I don't encourage being as much of like a degenerate as I was. We would stay up till like literally the sun came out. Like if we were playing an event on the weekend, on like Wednesday and Thursday night, we would test from like 11 p.m. to like 5, 6 a.m. Just like playing hand after hand after hand. But this is like, you know, not something. This is like college behavior, right? This is not something that like everyday person I recommend to do. But this is like what I kind of did to expedite the process and try to get better at the game as fast as I could, is just put in like infinite reps.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Chat, by the way, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them. I would like to ask you what your favorite deck is.
I think my favorite deck, is it my favorite deck that I've ever played at an event, or like in theory a deck that I really like?
Both.
Okay, so I think my favorite deck that I've actually played in tournament is the True Draco Sky Striker deck.
Okay.
Have you heard about this?
Yes.
This phenomenon? Yeah. So this is like a deck I had tried to make it work for so long. Like I originally came up with the idea right when the Sky Striker cards came out at that YCS that Cody won. Cody Angeloff, he won with Trickstar Sky Striker. Mm-hmm. I think this was like maybe July of 2018. I don't know, so somewhere around there. It was right when they introduced the change in the time rules, where it was no longer turns. It was just end the phase, then the game's over.
Okay.
So whenever that was, it was that first event. And so I was playing True Draco Sky Striker, and this is before Hayate or Kaina were cards. I'm trying to think if there's any other support they got later. I think it was just those. So you had like 3 Kagari, 3 Shizuku, Hornet Drones was at 3, Engage was at 3, Multi-Roll was at 3, and I think Terraforming was also still at 3. So the deck was like super cool. The concept that I wanted to exploit was like activating Dragonic Diagram, and then Dragonic Diagram destroys the card at resolution. So it works really cool with quick play spells, because you can activate the diagram and then chain a quick play spell, like Hornet Drones or like Cosmic Cyclone or whatever. And then when you resolve the diagram to destroy a card and then search a card, you could destroy that quick play spell because it's still on the field technically. Oh, so it's like you got like a +1.
Okay.
So this was kind of like the idea, is that you would just get a lot of cards. There was no like negates or anything. You would just try to like put a lot of spells engrave, draw cards off of your engages, and draw cards off of the True Draco stuff. And then when you were going second, use like the True Draco spells and traps along with the Sky Striker spells to try to like break apart their board that way. So this is like, I started playing this in 2018 at that YCS in New Jersey, and I got super unlucky, I guess you could say, but it was also my fault. I got a draw the first round because I wasn't really used to the new time rules. But then I think it was 9 rounds on the first day, and I remember going into the last round and I played against I forget his name. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he was playing Altergeist. I think he topped the event. He was playing Altergeist, and we played in like the little like VIP area. It was my first time like being in that little like roped off area. And I was super excited because I was X2-1 at that time. So I was 5-2-1. And I knew you could top the YCS if you stayed at with 2 losses, 1 draw. Like you were basically guaranteed, because I think it was going to be like 2 or 3 rounds the next day.
Okay.
So, and then I saw he was playing Altergeist, and I was like, oh, this is the free win. Like True Draco beats Altergeist, and Sky Striker should beat Altergeist. So like, how can I lose this match? But unfortunately, in the first game, I got a game loss because I accidentally drew an extra card off of True Draco Heritage. For those that don't know, True Draco Heritage lets you draw cards based on the number of True Draco and True King cards sent from the field to the graveyard this turn. And so when I went to draw off of the Heritage, I fanned out my graveyard, and I saw I had a monster, a spell, and a trap in there. So I drew 3 cards, and then shuffled my hand, and my opponent's like, wait, you drew 3, but only 2 were sent from the field, because I had forgotten that I had destroyed the trap from my hand with a diagram earlier. So I accidentally drew an extra card, I shuffled my hand, and there was no way of verifying which were the cards I drew to like repair the game state. So I got a game loss.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, it's fine, it's whatever. It's Altergeist, like I'll just pretend that he drew really well and he won game 1, and then I'll win this next game 2 and 3. So then game 2, and I'm in like a really game 2 happens. I think, I went first, set up with like Shizuku, some back row cards in hand, and then he sets back row passes. Then on my turn, I use one of the Draco spells to destroy his set, Waking the Dragon. And so he summoned out an Ultimate Falcon. And as I popped the Waking the Dragon, I'm like instantly start sweating, right? I'm like, oh god, this is like, am I really gonna lose because of this? And then I was like, wait, I play Tune Table of Contents in my deck, because this is like the first event with Striker being legal, so people were trying a bunch of gimmicky stuff. I was like, Tune Table of Contents with Tune Cyber Dragon, because it was a really good counter to the Goki deck, since they would set up like a U-Link. So you could like special the Tune Cyber Dragon and contact Fuse with both of the monsters in their extra monster zone to get yourself out of the U-Link. So I was like, I thought I had like the spice. So I was like, oh, this is fine. Like, he'll summon the Ultimate Falcon. This is Master Rule 4, right? Where so you have to put stuff in the extra monster zone.
Yeah.
There's no like, you can't like put it in the main monster zone. And so I was like, all right, it's fine. Like, eventually I'll draw the Tune Table, I'll draw the Tune Cyber Dragon, and I can out it. But then he put the Ultimate Falcon in the main monster zone because I was giving him the Shizuku arrow. And you can only contact Fuse for the Mega Fleet with extra monster zone. Yeah. So I was like, oh wow, I just lose. Like, I have no more out to this. My only out is getting 21 spells engraved with Kagari at 3,600 attack. So, yeah, needless to say, that did not happen, and that was my dreams shattered of that deck. But the story, this is a long story, but has happy ending. So then I played the deck at Nats that year and didn't do well there either. And then I just kind of put it on the back burner. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, there'll be a time when I revisit this deck because I really like it, but I'm going to play other stuff in the meantime. Okay. So then I put the deck on the back burner until YCS Portland. This is toward the end of 2019. So there's been a bunch of like new cards come out since then. Hornet Drones is at 1. I think Multi-Roll is at 1. Kagari's at 1. But the rest of the stuff is at 3. And this is when people were playing the the Chaos Danger Thunder Dragon deck that would make like Colossus and stuff. So that was obviously a tough time for a deck that relies on searching a bunch of cards.
Yeah.
But at that YCS Portland, I played the True Draco Sky Striker deck, and in its new version, and I was doing super well. I was like, all right, this is my time. I ended day one at with only 2 losses. So I was going into day 2. I was like, all right, I got to win these 3 rounds, and then I'm guaranteed.
Okay.
So then, in I win the first round. Then the second round, I have to play against one of my friends from Las Vegas, Matthew Gibson, and this is the most scuffed match ever. So we start playing, and we immediately get deck checked.
Okay.
For anyone who doesn't know what, like, if you've never been to a premiere event, maybe you don't know what deck check is, but basically it's random. Every round, the judges will select anywhere from 2 to 4 tables, and they'll take the decks of both players and go through them and make sure you don't have any like cards that have obvious marks on them. They make sure that you're actually playing the cards that you wrote on your deck list, that kind of thing. And they're taking forever. So we're just like talking. I was like, oh wow, this is like kind of weird. I hope there's no problem, because they've been like, it's been like 25, 30 minutes and they still haven't come back. For context, this stuff usually takes like 8 to 10 minutes max.
Wow.
So like people on the sides of us that are playing have like already finished their matches, and we still haven't even gotten our stuff back yet. So then they finally come back after 30 minutes, and one of the judges is talking to Matthew across the table, and then the other judge pulls me aside, and I have to head into the back room. They call it, like, jokingly, the Shadow Realm. There's like an area at like the IRL events where it's like black curtained off, where that's where like the judges like chill between rounds. It's like where they print out like the slips and stuff. So I got taken back to the Shadow Realm, and the judge was saying, like, he was just asking me like a bunch of questions. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was just like asking me a bunch of questions about my deck, and I was like super, super nervous because I was like, I have no idea what I've done wrong. Like, I printed out my deck list from Dueling Book. Like, I know the actual cards are fine. I don't have any like marked or warped cards to my knowledge.
Yeah.
And so the judge was just saying, like, okay, you have like these all these foreign cards. They're all warped. You need to replace them. And I'm giving you a game loss. So I was like, what do you mean? Like, how can I just like replace these like engages? Because this is when engage is like $100, right? So I'm like, yeah, I can't just like replace all these cards. I don't know what you're talking about. But he's like, yeah, like normally this would be like disqualification penalty, but you seem like you had like, you didn't really understand what was happening. So like, we're letting you off with just game loss, and as long as you can replace the cards, you can continue to play. So I was like,
where are you gonna get like what?
Yeah, how am I gonna get like this like full deck? So luckily for me, not luckily for him, one of my friends from locals was playing the exact same deck as me, and he'd already scrubbed out of the tournament.
Oh, God.
So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna like hope that he's not playing any side events or anything, and like I'm just gonna ask him to basically borrow his deck, because I knew his was all in English. So I was like, I hope they have like no problems. So luckily, his name's Ryan. So I was like, all right, Ryan, like I had to explain to him like the situation quickly, and then he gave me his deck, because we were playing. I think it was like only a couple cards difference. So I just basically took all the stuff I needed, got back to the table, and by now the round timer has already expired. So I'm like super nervous, because this match matters. We're at like table 10, I think. So whoever like wins here will just play one more round, and then that person will like definitely top. So I managed to scramble the deck together, get back to the table, and as I'm at the table, the judge tells me what happened with Matthew, and he also got a game loss.
Oh.
Because he had a deck list error. He wrote down like a couple different cards from what he was actually playing in his deck.
Oh.
So we had both gotten a game loss. So this is what I'm saying. This is like the most scuffed match ever. So we're both starting with a loss. So we actually are only playing one game to decide the match.
Is it like with siding or like?
Nope. No siding. So literally, and the clock is already expired too. So the judge comes over and tells us, he's like, all right, I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes. you roll to see who goes first, and then whoever wins that match wins.
Okay.
And he's playing because we were like talking beforehand. He told me he was playing like the Danger Thunder combo deck, which is like my worst matchup ever. So I'm like, great. He wins the die roll. So I'm like, all right, we have to play one game against my worst matchup, like, and it's my friend too. So it's like, this is the worst experience ever. So then we end up playing that one game, and he doesn't open that well. So I'm like, okay, I have a chance. He just makes like subpar board, and I'm able to attack directly with a high octane, and then like 2 plays main phase 2 to get rid of his board, and then I pass to him with like 30 seconds left, and time is called in his main phase before he's able to do anything. So I was able to like choose out that win, and I got super hyped because I was like, wow, like I can't believe all this stuff has happened. This is insane.
And so then I had to play. I'm getting nervous for my first YCS. I've never been to YCS or regional, and now I'm just scared.
Oh, trust me, I'll tell you after. There's absolutely no reason to be nervous. It's fine. I gotta finish the story because it has a sad conclusion. This part of the story, at least. So then in the next round, I play against pure Sky Striker, just like Sky Striker with like hand traps and stuff like that. And again, I'm thinking like it's reminiscent of playing the Altergeist thing, where I was like, wow, this is like a bubble match where if I win this, I basically guarantee top the YCS. We're at like table like 7 or something at this point. And I'm playing against Pure Striker. Like this should be a really easy matchup for me. I had practiced it a lot, but and the game plan against Pure Striker was basically to always try to win game 1, no matter how grindy the game got, because eventually he would run out of resources. But I had all the Draco cards, which let you Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix lets you shuffle back 3 Draco cards from the grave to draw 1. So like essentially I could play the game forever and I could actually outgrind them. So the plan was like to win game 1, but it's a sketchy plan because then game 3 sometimes goes down to time if you like lose game 2. So it ends up working out exactly like that. I win game 1, he wins game 2, and game 3 I'm going first, and there's only like a minute left. So well, it's my decision, right? I don't know if I'm going first or second, but I decide to go first and think like, okay, I'll be able to establish Kaina, gain some life points, and then the Draco cards, it's like really easy to not die because I can use Apocalypse to half his attack and pop his monsters. So I'm like, all right, like I can gain some life, then I won't die. So I draw my hand, and it's 2 True Draco monsters, a Ray, and Area 0, and another Area 0. Yeah, 2 Area 0s, a Ray, and 2 True Draco monsters. So like, not ideal to put it simply.
Really? Isn't it good to have Ray?
Oh, it's amazing if I was going to go for a grind game. But I'm just trying to like have spells I can play to be able to gain life off of Kaina. Or I'm trying to have Widow Anchors so that he doesn't Hayate punch me and kill me. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I have no ways of like stopping him.
Oh, okay.
In an ideal game, right? Like if we're playing, if there's like 20 minutes on the clock, the hand's like fine because I have Ray. Like I can play the long game. But in terms of just gaining life points turn 1 and then being able to stop him from Hayate attacking on turn 2, like this is not what you're looking for.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll become apparent in a sec. So basically, I summon the Ray. I do like the field spell play where you activate the field spell on Ray, and then chain the Ray effect.
Yeah.
And I whiff. So I'm like, oh great. So I make a Kaina, and as I summon the Kaina, he activates infinite permanence on the Kaina.
Oh.
So I can't gain any life points. So I just have to pass, and like he bricked as well, but he was able to take enough time on his turn that like he couldn't do anything. So we drew, and then I ended up getting 35th out of top 32.
After all that.
So I was like, yeah. So I was super sad because I knew that the deck was good. It was like the same thing we were talking about before. Like I knew the deck was good. I had tried really hard. I practiced a lot. Like I knew I could do it. But luckily, there was another YCS in Fort Worth, Texas, the next month, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to change up a few things about my deck and play it in this event. I know I can do well, and I ended up getting my first YCS top at that event with the
Oh,
Draco Sky Striker.
congratulations. Honestly, if I got through
Yeah.
5th place, I would not shut the hell up about it. I would bring it up all the
Mhm.
time. But, like, that
Oh
would
yeah,
be,
yeah.
like, nuts because that'd be, like, my first YCS. Like, even bubbling or even making day 2 would be a very big deal for me. But,
Oh, definitely. Like playing so many rounds, being able to go like 6-2-1 on day one and making day two is like amazing.
yeah. So,
It's like
we'll see.
it's like the best feeling walking on day two when like you see that there's like 200 or so people going over here to play, and there's like the 1,000 that didn't make it going over to play side events. It's like a
Yeah.
satisfying feeling.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so being able to get I guess this question started with what my favorite deck is. So I think that's my favorite deck because it's the deck I had been grinding at the longest and got my first YCS top with it.
Okay. All right. So we're kind of running low on time. So I'll just ask some questions from chat.
Sure.
Have you ever felt like you were not having fun in Yu-Gi-Oh, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah. So it's happened, I think, 3 or 4 times when I've felt that I wasn't having fun. Usually it's because I had a similar situation where I thought I tested a lot for an event and went there and didn't get the result that I was looking for. And I have like a couple ways of I guess dealing with that. So the first thing I did is I started playing like Cube Draft. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Oh, yes. I like draft a lot.
Yeah, so a couple of my friends had like a cube already made, so we like experimented with playing that, and it was kind of like refreshing to expand, my horizons of like what cards are around. Because the way they play is they play like all types or all types. So like Dragon
Okay.
Shrine can send any monster from the deck to the graveyard,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah, I played like that too.
Yeah, so I started playing this, and this was like a way of like making the game kind of fun again. And I would play this for like a few weeks to a month before I started getting back and playing like the actual game. I was like, all right, I'm like refreshed on Yu-Gi-Oh as a whole because of like this other format. And then another thing I would do too, kind of in a similar vein, is play like some old formats. Like I liked playing Necros in like 2015 because I never got to play actual Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. So it was like cool to play like those old formats from the perspective of someone who like didn't actually play then.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I played like Dragon Rulers as well, like 2012 Dragon Rulers, some goats, but I don't really like goats. And then like I said, like the Necros format as well in 2015.
Okay.
So yeah, those are a couple ways. And recently too, because I don't know, I'm not like too crazy about the current game. I still like it because I feel like I have so much time spent in the game that I want to continue to like get some sort of rewards, accolades, whatever you want to call it, from playing. But I started playing Flesh and Blood. It's like another trading card game. So
Okay.
I play that like a little bit on the side to kind of like distract from Yu-Gi-Oh when Yu-Gi-Oh is getting frustrating.
Okay. Thank you for answering that. And last question
Yeah.
is, would you mind sharing what deck you and your dad are going to play at the next YCS?
Yeah. So this is I'll try to keep it short. I usually choose the deck I'm gonna play in at least in like the past like year or two as I've gotten more comfortable with all the decks in the given format. I usually choose the deck like the week before, maybe a week and a half before, like 10 days, whatever. Because I want to have the most up-to-date information about the metagame and like what other people are playing. Since like I want to be able to choose a deck that beats kind of what I think most of the field is going to be playing. As of right now, I'm playing Virtual World. I played it at the PPG, and I played it at like a big. We had a 3v3 tournament for Starlight Ecclesias. I played it there, and then I just played it at the Goofy Gauntlet like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So that's what I've been playing. And then Mike has been playing Flunder, but I don't know if he's going to continue to play it. He kind of like, it seems like after every tournament, he gets super salty about the deck because, like you were saying, like you just don't draw birds, or you go second and you draw like only birds. It's it can be frustrating, but yeah, that's what he's playing right now.
Yeah, like if time weren't an issue, I'd be like,
Mhm.
sure, I'll play Flunder. But I played in a
Mhm.
3v3. We actually topped. I played Flunder. Calvin played Virtual World, and Luis played Pranks. And I went to time pretty much every round. Unless I either 2-0'd them or like it was like a grind game that was just like miserable. And it was very, very difficult. I like stayed in the same spot for like 6 hours, and it was just a lot. Like, I do like the deck a lot. I think it's really cute too, but like I just don't think it's a good tournament deck. Like a good YCS deck.
Yeah.
I just don't think about it.
Yeah, it seems like very stress-inducing to play a lot of rounds of that.
Yeah, but I do love it. Alrighty.
Someone mentioned in the chat too. Yeah.
Huh?
I was thinking someone mentioned Live Twins in the chat too. That's what I played at the Denver event at that 3v3. So that's like a pet deck. I really like that deck too.
What? You didn't say hi to me when you were at the Denver event?
I didn't like. Yeah, I don't know. I was like running off of basically no sleep. So I did. I just did. I guess I didn't see you there.
Okay.
My fault.
No worries.
I'll accept that one. It's my bad.
Yeah, it's okay. As long as you say hi to me in Charlotte.
Oh, for sure.
I think it'll be okay. I'm really excited. I'm just gonna meet all these online friends that I've amassed in the past 2 years. Like, this is gonna be super sick. Yeah.
Yep. Should be great.
Okay. Any shout outs you wanna do before we end?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of been talking about various people throughout this whole podcast. But yeah, shout out to the local community out in Arizona. Everybody that used to go to Top Caliber Gaming. Y'all were like very instrumental in making me who I am today. And then my local community here too. We play at this store, Endangered Hobbies in Natick, Mass. We usually get like 50 to 60 person locals, so it's like pretty poppin'. That's nice. And then obviously shout out my dad too. We talk about the game basically every single day. So I guess that's another way of like someone mentioning not having fun. Like at least it's something that he and I can discuss and like argue in a positive way about. Okay.
That's cute. Yep. All right, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, etc. Don't forget we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, your mom's podcast, every podcast. We are on that. And let me know what guests you want to see on the next episode and any questions you want me to ask. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. No, don't go anywhere. Okay. Bye-bye.